Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. A lot of you asked what happened to Anakin Skywalker when he appeared on Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds. Was he a Force ghost? Was it a version from the past during the events of the Clone Wars? Because he was wearing his Clone Wars armor and he had his Clone Wars haircut. They also de-aged Hayden Christensen just a little bit so that he looked as young as he would have during the Clone Wars. A lot of people wondering if he was just a figment of Ahsoka's imagination and it was all just happening inside her unconscious mind, as opposed to her traveling into the World Between Worlds like we saw Ezra do on Star Wars Rebels. Just a lot of questions in general. But in reality, something much more profound than just turning into a Force ghost has happened to Anakin after he died in Return of the Jedi, so we'll break it all down. He's something much, much bigger now. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the Ahsoka episodes. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. We're also doing a giveaway for the Mandalorian Blu-ray. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and just post all your predictions for how they're going to use Anakin Skywalker in the future on the video. This is where the fun begins. Like, literally, it has just begun. Hayden Christensen has just started to come back.
It's nice if it's like a genuine sort of recollection of like, oh, I've heard that before. Oh.
Careful for spoilers for everything that's happened on Ahsoka so far, but during Ahsoka Episode 5, Anakin Skywalker appears to Ahsoka in the World Between Worlds to give her a final lesson. He looks just like he did during the Clone Wars. They were in the World Between Worlds. It wasn't meant to be just Ahsoka imagining everything like she was in this place. She really did speak to Anakin Skywalker. It was real Anakin as he exists now in present day, but choosing to appear as he did during the Clone Wars. So it's older Anakin making himself look like he did when Ahsoka was his young Padawan, just for the purposes of their lesson. But it wasn't just Force Ghost Anakin Skywalker talking to her, because we've seen him manifest as a Force Ghost before. We know that he can do that. And it does seem likely that we'll get another Force Ghost Anakin cameo scene at some point. But this version of Anakin that we saw showed that he'd become something way more powerful and way bigger than just a regular Force ghost like Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn. And this goes back to Dave Filoni and George Lucas's Clone Wars Mortis episodes, where he lays out this grander version of the prophecy of the Chosen One that gets referenced all the time in Star Wars. Normally, when characters said Anakin Skywalker was the Chosen One, like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, even Mace Windu, pretty much everyone believed that he would bring balance to the Force in a more practical kind of way. The Jedi Council just thought that that meant he was super powerful and would help them kill the Sith, who at the time they hadn't quite learned was Emperor Palpatine yet. Now, according to George Lucas, at the time his intent was that the Council was meant to interpret the prophecy wrong, and it was the light side that needed to be balanced back to a more gray neutral between the dark side and the light side in the galaxy. The light side had grown too powerful. That was George Lucas's way of justifying Order 66. So Anakin falls to the dark side, Order 66 happens, most of the Jedi are either killed, few survive and scatter. Later during the events of the original trilogy, the idea was that Palpatine was meant to have grown too powerful. He fulfills the prophecy again by killing him during Return of the Jedi. Then the scales of the Force between light and dark side balance out again in the galaxy. But a couple years after Revenge of the Sith, when Dave Filoni and George Lucas plotted out the Clone Wars Mortis arc, they made the prophecy about Anakin go even deeper, like they added new context to the prophecy. During the Clone Wars Mortis episodes, they meet the father, the son, and the daughter, ancient aliens who are meant to be so powerful in the Force, it made them functionally immortal. Each one of them represented a different aspect of the Force, and the Force flowed through them kind of like conduits to the rest of the galaxy, the rest of the universe, basically. The son was like the manifestation, the conduit of the dark side of the Force, the daughter, the light side, and the father existed to balance out their two powers so that there was balance between the light side and the dark side of the Force throughout the galaxy. This effect was meant to be so powerful that if the son grew more dominant in their relationship, the Sith, the dark side Force users around the galaxy, would see incredible gains in strength relative to their previous abilities, and the same for the daughter with the light side Jedi. So the Mortis Gods were kind of like cosmic amplifiers of the Force, conduits through which the Force flowed to the rest of the galaxy. Now, because in the Ahsoka series we've learned about the Purrgil galaxy, this effect is also universe-wide. Like, even though we usually just talk about the one main galaxy, technically the Mortis Gods effect would radiate across the entire universe. Like, the Force isn't just trapped to the one galaxy. The closer that the three of them were to the main dimension, like the main universe, the mortal realm where normal people walk around and exist, the greater their influence on the Force. So he essentially removed them to the Mortis realm, which acted kind of like a pocket dimension, so that their effect on the galaxy was lessened to a degree. When Anakin meets them, the father tells him that he's essentially destined to replace him and become the new balance between his son and daughter. That is the true prophecy. You will bring balance to the Force, but in a more literal way, between these cosmic aspects of the dark side and the light side.
I am much more, and so are you. You feel your destiny? You must see it now. I am dying, and you must replace me. But this is yours. It has been foretold. The Chosen One will remain to keep my children in balance.
At the time, the father literally wanted Anakin to never leave the Mortis realm, like in this other dimension, just stay here forever with these other two members of my family. But essentially, it was the father telling Anakin that he was destined to become another conduit through all Force energy would flow, and he would bring balance to everything. Then the daughter gets killed by the son, the father sacrifices his life, which takes away the son's immortality, and eventually he dies, leaving no more Mortis gods. But here's the thing, the father's prophecy about Anakin being destined to balance the Force in a more cosmic way was still going to happen. Now in present day, Dave Filoni is essentially bringing all these ideas into live action from Clone Wars, Mortis, Star Wars Rebels, and paying them off with these Anakin Skywalker episodes and a lot of the other things that are happening on the show. This is the way they're explaining why you haven't seen Force Ghost Anakin appear since Return of the Jedi. It's because after his death, essentially he's replaced the Mortis God's function in the universe as the balance between the dark side and the light side. He's been so busy essentially protecting the flow of Force at a cosmic scale, he doesn't have time to show up every day to talk to everybody. Now, for those of you asking about Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost, we did learn that after Anakin died, at some point, Luke Skywalker met his Force Ghost, and they had a much longer father-son chat that everyone always wished that they could see on screen. Like, wouldn't it be great to see the two of them talk to each other? That was meant to happen while Luke Skywalker was still alive, after the events of what's happening on Ahsoka, The Mandalorian, with the Thrawn stuff right now, but long before the events of the sequel trilogy. So by the events of the sequel trilogy, Old Man Luke already knows everything because he learned it from his father as a Force Ghost. For a brief hot second, Rian Johnson said that he almost had Force Ghost Anakin show up instead of Force Ghost Yoda to pay off a lot of that stuff, but at the time, most casual fans only remembered the events of the movies, and they just knew all of Luke's time with Yoda and just felt like their relationship was closer than his relationship with Luke and Anakin Skywalker. Maybe someday in the future, when they do another version of Luke Skywalker, if it's deepfake Luke or they recast the character, then maybe we can see Luke talk to Force Ghost Anakin. There's also been a lot of cool fan art and theories about Ahsoka's role in all this, in like the new Mortis Gods, like this depiction of Anakin leading the new Mortis Gods, depicting Ahsoka as the daughter and Starkiller as the son. But Dave Filoni hasn't introduced Starkiller formally, even though there are a lot of theories about that, because Sam Witwer is all over the Ahsoka series in background voices. But like Ahsoka, for instance, has not become a Mortis God or anything like that. On the show, when Ahsoka entered the World Between Worlds to talk to Anakin, the reason why he's able to control the World Between Worlds that way, why he has so much power in there, is because he's so powerful in the state he exists now, more powerful than a normal Force Ghost. Dave Filoni also introduced a small retcon to the way the World Between Worlds works from Star Wars Rebels. During Rebels, he depicted it as more like a physical location you travel to outside the normal dimension, but on Ahsoka, the new way of explaining it is that it's more of a separate dimension your Force essence or your consciousness travels to, while your physical body remains in the normal realm. That's how Ahsoka can enter the World Between Worlds, but her body is still unconscious, floating in the water. So it wasn't meant to be Ahsoka hallucinating, talking to Anakin. She really was talking to him. It's just that her consciousness traveled into the World Between Worlds, which is more of a metaphysical location now. But essentially, when you're inside the World Between Worlds, it works the same way it did during Rebels, like it's connected to all points in time and space. For example, Grogu could sit on top of some sort of Force fulcrum like we saw during The Mandalorian Season 2 and meditate his way into the World Between Worlds, but his physical body would still be sitting on this little perch here. Inside the World Between Worlds, it still basically works the same. You're able to access any point in history or the future anywhere in the universe. But it also means that if you wanted to time travel in the World Between Worlds, the only way you could do that, because it's your consciousness in the World Between Worlds, is that you would essentially have to take over your consciousness in the past, like your Force spirit in the present would have to take over your body in the past. The funny thing about that is that it's almost exactly what Emperor Palpatine does. He transfers his Force essence to clone bodies when he needs a new one. For those of you also asking how Anakin learned how to become a Force Ghost because he died and we didn't see him get that lesson with anybody else before he died, Obi-Wan Kenobi's Force Ghost essentially found his essence after he died on the Death Star and taught him how then. So it was like one Force Ghost teaching another Force Ghost something. Inside the Star Wars universe, what happens after most people die is that your essence, your Force essence, just becomes part of the greater cosmic force, like it sort of disperses into everything everywhere. When that happens, you lose all sense of self, all your memories from before, like you basically stop being a person. But the Jedi who learn to become Force Ghosts can retain their consciousness and sense of self after death. That's basically what a Force Ghost is. So Force Ghost Obi-Wan Kenobi found Anakin's essence after his death, basically taught him how to become a Force Ghost before he just dispersed into everything everywhere. My early theory right now is we'll probably see at least 1 or 2 more Anakin Skywalker cameos during the Ahsoka episodes, because there's only a couple episodes left, but there'll be different types of cameos than the god-tier Anakin that we saw in the World Between Worlds. They teased archival footage of Anakin during the Clone Wars when Thrawn was asking for Ahsoka's history and to learn about her master, because he did know Anakin Skywalker, and also he knew that Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader and actually worked with Darth Vader on some occasions. And I think we'll see at least one Anakin Skywalker Force Ghost cameo scene in present day where he just comes to give Ahsoka a pep talk before the finale is done. Kind of like a Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn cameo scene at the end of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Let me know in the comments, if Anakin has replaced the Mortis Gods basically, how do you want them to use him as a character in the movies and shows that take place way later in the timeline? Because he could still show up in 100 years after Grogu has become a Jedi Master, training his own students, giving him sage wisdom. In his current state, Anakin is effectively immortal.
Putting on the Anakin costume, getting to wear those Jedi robes, it kind of blows your mind every time. I just feel very grateful.
Hayden Christensen is also a very young man, so he can still come back doing Star Wars stuff for many, many years. My full Ahsoka Episode 7 video will post next. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. Click here for that video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it. And click here for that new Anakin Skywalker Episode 5 deleted scene and alternate ending. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.